Well, I hate to say we told you so, but we told you so. As soon as I heard about this story from New York, I said, the FBI knows the guy that did this. They already know him. And then we saw their little song and dance routine of, we're going to catch the guy. We're going to use the fingerprints on the bomb to find him. We're going to do an all points bulletin. Someone's going to discover him asleep in the foyer of a bar in the middle of the day. All this nonsense. They know him. They've known him for 2 years. Just came out in the Wall Street Journal. I will read you the quotes. Rahami was arrested in 2014 for allegedly stabbing his brother and punching his sister. When the police responded to that incident, Mr. Ramahi's father claimed his son was a terrorist. The local, and it goes, that's not all that happened. Hang on. The local Joint Terrorism Task Force, which is run by the FBI, opened an assessment in late August of 2014, 2 years ago. An assessment is akin to a review of an individual to see if there's anything suspicious about him. But it is not a full-throated criminal probe. Quote, we didn't think he had any connection, and we closed it. At the time, we did our due diligence, and there was nothing there, said one official. They knew him. They knew his name. They knew his address. They knew he was Officer Rocker. They had to have known that he'd made repeated trips to Afghanistan. Somewhere I read, and I wish I had the source, but it was a mainstream news media source. He didn't just go to Afghanistan. He spent a year solid in Afghanistan, in an area known to be controlled by the Taliban. Now, when you go through the airport to try to go see your grandma in Iowa, they basically do a digital strip search of you and your children because you're so fucking dangerous. But we have a guy whose own father tells the FBI that his son is a terrorist, who makes repeated trips to Afghanistan, who spent a year in a Taliban-controlled part of Afghanistan, and they don't see, and he's a military age, able-bodied, spouting all kinds of, crazy jihad bullshit. They don't, then no problem there, nothing to see, move along. Well, they know the guy. They knew who he was. And as I said earlier tonight, I recorded something before I read this item. They just gave him a long leash and waited for him to do something. Because once he does something, then they get a big budget increase, and they get to take away more civil liberties, and they get to harass more average Americans in all the name of freedom and safety and security and whatever other bullshit they're offering us. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. But we predicted it. And it came to be true. So that's why they didn't want to show us the bomb too soon. They wanted to sort of do a dance of the seven veils. First, they discover that they close off 27th Street. We don't know why. Then there's a hint that maybe there was a device on 27th Street. We don't know what the device is. We don't know because the law enforcement isn't telling us. Then, hours later, by the way, they knew exactly what the bomb was right away. I mean, they knew it. They knew what they had. There's no mystery. Then a reporter gets on TV at about 1 o'clock in the morning and says, I've seen the picture, but I'm not allowed to show it to you, but I can tell you what I saw. And then finally, many, many, many hours later, all of a sudden, there was a bomb, and we got it. Really. So we're all being jerked around, getting all excited about the investigation. They found the bomb. Okay, now they're gonna do an all points bulletin. Oh my God, they found the guy. They got him. Oh my God, NYPD, unbelievable. Jersey police, first responders. Oh, they're so amazing. No, they knew who this guy was. I'm going to guess by 10 o'clock. And then they finally went out and got him on Monday. 10 o'clock on Saturday, and they got him 10 o'clock on Monday morning. Wow. But we called it. You can look at our analysis. We immediately compared this to the first World Trade Center bombing. We said invariably there's an FBI connection somewhere in all of these events. Not in a few of them, not in half of them, not in 80% of them. In 100% of all the terrorist events, it always turns out, oh, yeah, we knew the guy. Yeah, we were talking to the guy. Yeah, we met with the guy. Yeah, we were investigating the guy. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. We're ever going to get tired of this? Certainly, the media, the mass media, and even the so-called left and progressive media, they don't seem to be too concerned. They pretty much swallow the stories as they're given and, take their left spin on it and say, oh, well, we can't be against immigrants. Well, I mean, duh, the whole country's immigrants. How can you be against them? So you're not doing anything great by saying that we should give immigrants a fair shake. That's nothing amazing. What would be amazing is if progressive reporters or reporters really from all stripes would start aggressively calling this what it is. I mean, we are being terrorized by our own government. It's not more complicated than that. And they're not only terrorizing us, they're lying to us about every detail of every one of these cases. And you don't need to be Einstein to see through these things. You just need to take a look at the facts. And this is just a perfect example of one of these cases. So anyway, I recorded something else that's going to start in a second earlier today, and it's based on the logistics of the placement of the bomb, because this story, this suspicious story is still not finished, as you're going to see in the second part of my comments. There's some really inexplicable and bizarre things related to this whole event that suggest that, well, you'll see. You'll see. Hi, this is Brad Check, and this is our next update on the New York City bombing. Questions nobody else is asking, and today we're going to show you maps that nobody else is showing you, and you'll find out there's a good reason why nobody is showing these maps. By total coincidence, I was talking with a friend of mine today who has another friend who, by the way, this friend of mine lives right near where this explosion took place, just a few blocks away. And she was talking to a friend, a client, who works for a 3-letter federal agency. And the friend said, I don't really know what happened, but I can tell you this, they found that guy way too fast, which is what I thought. But not being a professional, I just thought it was common sense, but this has been confirmed by somebody. And she also went on to say, sometimes they let these guys go ahead and do this stuff so that they have something to pin on them. In other words, they follow them around, they know they're up to something. It's a little too hard to follow them all the time, so they let them do something. They know who it is. And all those bizarre delays, not telling us about the bomb they found, not showing us the bomb, not bothering to solicit eyewitness testimony at the scene, not putting up flyers at the scene, all these non-investigative activities probably went on for the reason that I think they did, which is that they already knew who'd done it, and they were just letting sufficient time pass to suddenly find him miraculously. Just a theory, but backed up by a professional who has seen this done more than once. Also, I did a little follow-up on the victims of the bombing, and my heart obviously out to anybody who was injured. I mean, what a shocking thing to be walking down the street and have a bomb like that go off. However, if you try to get information on these people, you'll find that of the 29, Only one of them is named. As far as I know, there's no video interviews. There was a photograph taken of one of them, which they showed in the previous report, and everyone's been released. So the injuries could not have been that serious if people are already out of the hospital, which is a good thing, assuming, of course, there really were 29 people that went to the hospital. That you always have to ask that question. Notice that every time there is some kind of terrorist act, typically the news media runs to the hospital. They ran to the hospital in Orlando, and they wanted to interview everybody they could. And that was a much more savage scenario, with people gunned down and held hostage for hours and then gunned down. But for some reason, the news media, with their half a dozen news trucks parked at 23rd Street, just didn't feel like going to the hospital and talking to anybody that actually experienced the explosion and was injured by it. What does this mean? I don't know. But let us jump now to the maps. Now, you may have seen some maps. New York Times kindly created a map to help you understand what happened, but they left some things out. In fact, they shaped the maps in such a way as to be a bit confusing, which, by the way, is absolute fingerprint. Anytime you see a really well-done visual aid after a kind of dicey terrorist event, be suspicious. Be suspicious. Anyway, let's look at the first map. Okay. Supposedly, the bad guy put a bomb in a trash can in Seaside Park, New Jersey. Now, if you look at this map, Seaside Park, New Jersey is at the absolute bottom of the map, and Elizabeth, New Jersey, where he lived, is at the absolute top of the map. And it's about an hour and 11 minutes. All right, let's say an hour and a half down, an hour and a half back. That's 3 hours. Time to plant the thing, I don't know how long that takes. But, this took about 3 hours of his day. But I want you to notice something, that blue line. That blue line is the Garden State Parkway. Garden State Parkway has cameras up the wazoo. And you have to go through tolls to run on the Garden State Parkway. And you are photographed when you go through those tolls on the Garden State Parkway. And if you've got one of those handy-dandy chips, it automatically pays your toll for you and records that you have actually gone through the toll. So somewhere there is video. If this guy, in fact, did drive, and we will assume he drove, he didn't walk, he didn't take a horse, he didn't take mass transit. If this guy, in fact, did drive from Elizabeth, New Jersey to Seaside Park, there should be video every step of the way. You'd think they would have found it by now. It's pretty easy. They know what car he owns, they know what his license plate is, but we haven't heard anything about that. And maybe we never will. All right. Now let's ask the question, how did he get to Manhattan? And that's an important question, because getting to Manhattan is not easy for anybody, even if you live in Manhattan. It's just hard driving. And there's a bunch of choices. He could have driven, in which case it would have taken roughly a half hour each way, but that doesn't count delays at the tunnels, which can be significant. So here's the map for that. And he had a variety of different routes he could have taken. Not a biggie. He spent about 3.5 hours, or give or take, delivering the bomb to the seashore, and then he had another hour, let's call it 2 hours. That's 5 hours. Did he have time? Yeah, he definitely had time to do it by car. But here's the question. Let's take a look at this map. You don't just fly into Manhattan. You get into Manhattan via tunnels. And there's 2 tunnels you can take. And if you look at this map, there's the Lincoln Tunnel, which is the X at the very top of the map. And there's the Holland Tunnel at the very bottom of the map. Okay, that's how you get in. There is no other logical way to get into Manhattan from Elizabeth, New Jersey. You don't go all the way up to the George Washington Bridge and come down. These are the two ways you do it. Now, if you look at the X at the top of the map, that's the Lincoln Tunnel. He was a few blocks away from Times Square. He was a few blocks away from Madison Square Garden. He was a few blocks away from the Empire State Building. Instead, he chose to drive all the way down to 23rd Street. Is it a big deal? Not really, but it's New York City traffic. Even on a Saturday night, it's not terrible, but it's traffic. Now, if he came through the Holland Tunnel, which is the lower X, then he would have been even further away from where he ended up, which is the central X, right? There's three X's. The bottom is the Holland Tunnel. The central is the place where he ended up. A bomb detonated, something detonated, and at the top is the Lincoln Tunnel. So trying to figure out why the heck let's assume he went through the Lincoln Tunnel, why the heck he went all the way down to 23rd Street when he was close to some really amazing targets. And don't think there's no surveillance on 23rd Street. It may not be of the same order and quality as Times Square, but there's plenty. There's plenty. It's a two-way street, and it's 2 lanes on each side. So it's 4 lanes. Busy street. Okay. Now, some may say perhaps he took the PATH train. Maybe taking, because you see the PATH train, if you look at that central X, the PATH train lets you off right there at 23rd and 6th Avenue, right where that little blue icon is. So the bomb went off in the middle of 23rd and 6th, so 23rd between 6th and 7th, and the PATH train lets you off at 6th Avenue and 23rd. So that might make sense, right? I mean, that might explain why he put a bomb on 23rd Street, a totally nondescript part of the city. Here's the problem with that. There are many cameras on the PATH train. There are cameras at all the stations. There's just no way anybody can get on the PATH train in Newark. By the way, he would have had to come from Newark somehow. So he would have had to drive to Newark, which is Elizabeth. They're adjacent cities, but again, it's time. It's a hassle. He would have had to park the car. He would have had to lug these 2 pretty heavy bombs. I mean, remember, these are supposedly pressure cookers that are filled with basically steel, right? So they're not super heavy, but they're not light. You're not going to they're not balloons. They're not water balloons. They're heavy. So he would have had to lug this thing onto the PATH train in Newark, ride the train, get off the train at 23rd Street, and walk half a block to where this bomb actually detonated. Did he do that? Maybe. But if he did, he should be on all kinds of cameras. You can't blow your nose down there without it being recorded. The weird thing, and let's go to the next map, is that 27th Street bomb. Because 27th Street, this may sound obvious, but it's worth saying, 27th Street is 1, 2, 3, 4 New York City blocks from 23rd Street. Again, if you're carrying a heavy thing, or if you're rolling a heavy thing, it's kind of a pain in the ass. Why would you do that? Why would you go to 23rd Street? So this may throw out the idea that he was on the PATH train. And it's possible that we can just throw out that PATH train idea. Because again, if he was on the PATH train, he really had to haul a lot of heavy stuff a long way, and he was filmed massively. So let's look at the car scenario. Now here's the problem. There's two problems with the car scenario. One, why, if he came in through the Lincoln Tunnel, assuming he did he not go straight to Times Square or Madison Square Garden or the Empire State Building or some unbelievably rich Target? Why did he go out of his way to a fairly non-famous street? If he came out of the Holland Tunnel, you know, he was within shooting distance of Wall Street. He could have gone to all kinds of rich Targets down there, and there's a lot less traffic and a lot less foot traffic. So that's the first problem. Why 23rd Street? We could say he took the PATH train, but we've already looked at the problems with the PATH train. Doesn't make sense they took the PATH train. But there's another problem, and you can only know this if you're a New Yorker. Let's look at this map. West 23rd Street runs east and west. You can go in either direction. He went west. Well, if he was in a car, he went west because the bomb was placed on the north side of 23rd Street, where the X is. Right? Make sense? So he drives, he pulls over, he takes his satchel or whatever he's got, he dumps it in one of those little trash containers, and he's on his not-so-merry way. But here's the problem with 27th Street. Notice the direction he's going in. He's going west. Okay. He can't go up 7th Avenue. Notice that 7th Avenue runs from north to south. If he goes to 8th Avenue, that doesn't help him either. You can go north on 8th Avenue, but notice 27th Street. 27th Street is one way by car, east to west. You may say, well, what's the big deal? The big deal is if he put the 23rd Street bomb first, it was really difficult for him to get back to the middle of the 27th Street block. I mean, not super difficult, but, I would assume that somebody who's doing something like this doesn't want to be driving around up and down one-way streets. He could have gone down 23rd, gone to 8th, and then come back down 24th, and then gone up 6th. But do you see the problem? It's like, why would you do that? You're trying to get something done quickly. He probably didn't come from west to east on 23rd because he would have had to park the car on the south side of the street and carry the bomb across the street. This is a 4-lane street with a lot of traffic, especially in the middle of the block. This is like I said, unless you're from LA or some super big city, you probably don't have a street that's as busy as 23rd Street is on a Saturday night in your city. It's busy. It's not the busiest street in history, but it's busy. So you're probably not going to park the car on the south side of the street, walk your bomb across and place it on the north side of the street, and then get in your car. And then if he drove east, he could have gone north and then made the left on 27th. But you see, that's probably not what happened. Or is not how it happened. And then if you look at 27th Street, the only way he could have gotten to 27th Street would have been, and it's not on this map, he would have had to go all the way to 5th Avenue, down 5th Avenue, then made a right on 27th, then gone south on 7th Avenue. But he still would have had the problem of being on the wrong side of the street to place the bomb. So this may not seem like a big deal, but life is about logistics. And you got to imagine this guy doing this thing in the real world, not in the fantasy world, not in the cotton candy world, but in the world of like how the traffic works and how you would have actually done this. And the placement of these bombs is really dicey, really weird. Now, the 27th Street bomb is really weird for a lot of reasons. Number one, they found it, I heard, at 10 o'clock. At their 11:30 press conference, they didn't even admit to its existence. The photograph that shows what this bomb looks like, I don't think has even yet been officially been released by the police. Maybe it hasn't by now. The only way we saw it, the world saw it, is it somehow got onto social media. And that doesn't make a lot of sense. To block, as soon as the police found the bomb, they closed the street off. So people weren't wandering around taking pictures of the bomb and loading it up to their Twitter account, right? That doesn't seem plausible. Now, would a cop be so stupid as to do that and put his career at risk? Because apparently they didn't want anyone to know, right? They didn't tell us that they found it at 10. They had an official press conference at 11:30. They didn't even tell us there was a bomb. Obviously this was a hush-hush thing for some reason. So what's the motivation of a cop to take a photo and upload it to social media? And if he did, or she, we want to be fair to both sexes, if he or she did, then it would have been easy to trace back to that cop, and somebody should be in trouble, right? But instead we hear this fake story that the picture emerged and blah, 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 but we never hear how the picture came out. So what's the point of all this? Well, without that second bomb, there would have been no fingerprint. So without that fingerprint, they would have had no earthly reason for being able to find this guy so fast. Now, I've heard since that the other thing that helped trace him was the cell phone. That I only heard that from one source, that apparently, like an idiot, he bought the cell phone in his own name, and they were able to trace it back to him that way. All right, maybe. But the point is very important. There's obviously something very dicey about this second bomb. It's in a very weird location. Look at the map. It's not easy to walk there, and it's not easy to drive there from the 23rd Street location. So even if he came from the PATH train, which I don't think he did, but if he came from the PATH train and walked, the bombs over to mid-23rd Street and then walked back and then up, 6th Avenue and then down 27th Street, you see the implausibility of that? So the placement of the bomb is really suspect. The way the photograph of the bomb has been handled is really suspect. And the fact that, he conveniently left his fingerprints, physical and digital, all over the bomb so that they could identify him very fast is also suspect. Now, I'm not saying that the police put that bomb there so that they could claim that he had a fingerprint on it. I'm not saying that, but there's something very strange about the existence of that bomb, the placement of that bomb, and the way the police handled the information about the existence of that bomb after they supposedly found it at 10 o'clock. So these are the maps that no one else is going to show you. These are the questions that no one else is going to ask. This is what we do at Brass Check. We do it 365 days a year, 7 days a week. We don't have the resources of Fox or CNBC or MSNBC or CNN or any of those places. We do make some money from these blasted Google ads, but it ain't enough to pay the bills and make it worthwhile. So if you're a fan, if you've been following us for years, look at this analysis. Look at the hundreds of hours that have already been run on the network news channels, and nobody has bothered to look at the maps and the logical traffic flows. Nobody's bothered to ask these simple questions. We're not talking about a conspiracy theory. We're not, saying that the Masons did it or the reptiles did it or anything like that. We're saying this is yet another really dicey, suspicious, unbelievable terrorism story that's got more holes than Swiss cheese.